Alright, today I'm going to be doing a little presentation about Netiquette and how to behave professionally online. I've made this presentation for colleagues and other teachers, but a lot of the content is geared towards student interactions, just to make it easier to take what you learn from this and then apply it in your classroom. So, having studied Netiquette for a little bit, I've created what I call the three great rules of Netiquette. The first rule is the golden rule, and this is something we're all familiar with, or at least should all be familiar with, that we've learned. And simply, the golden rule is just to treat others how you wish to be treated. And I bring this up because it's something we all understand in interpersonal relations, but it can be easy to forget about this when you're sitting behind a screen. You're not necessarily thinking about who's also on the other side of the computer. The second one is also very important, and that is proofread. It's always good to proofread what you're sending, whether it's like an email or a discussion post, Facebook, or text. And I think many of us have experienced this with text. A lot of phones have autocorrect for text, and if you're not paying attention to what you're sending, you could send something either inappropriate or embarrassing or something you didn't mean to send. So it's always good to look at what you're sending. And then the third rule is, what would your grandmother think? And so basically this boils down to, if you're going to post something online, you should take a moment and think about, what would your elders think of this? Is it something appropriate? Is it something that you would normally say in person? Something you'd get in trouble for saying? Or something that you should be ashamed of saying? So even though you're on a computer and you might be using an avatar, you think you're anonymous, there's always some trace of something you put online. So for the purpose of this video, I've got an example. So for this one, it's a Facebook friend posts a picture, and you don't think it's necessarily a nice picture. So you have an option. There's an option to say, "Oh, this is a really bad picture. You should delete it." Or B, you could say nothing. If it's something that offends you or bothers you, you can always unfollow them on Facebook, or you can just ignore it. Then the other example, and this one is just an example, if a student was to email a teacher, says, "I didn't come to class because I was sick. What did I miss?" And so what they're saying is good. It's a good intention. They're trying to get caught up. They're showing effort, but because of the way it's composed, it looks as if the student didn't care. So I have a better example here across the bottom. It's the same thing, but it's just how you present yourself online. Another example of saying the same words but presenting it different would be, say you had written this all in caps, or you had punctuated it with an exclamation point. It might be perceived as if you're, yelling. So always make sure you use the right format and the appropriate format. And then the last thing I have is, there's some students that are posting on an online forum. They've got created usernames, so naturally sometimes it's easy to think just because you have a username and not your real name, then it doesn't matter what you say because it's not going to come back to you. So this student has their username, and so they say something that's inappropriate or could be hurtful to someone else. And so some of the potential consequences are, the student thinks that they're anonymous, but either someone might know that that's their username. They could figure it out because, oh, she's a huge fan of Ariana Grande, so they know, oh, that must be this person. Or your friends could know that was you, and then they could say something about it. So It's always good to remember that no matter what, you're not completely anonymous online. And so basically, I think if you can follow these rules, then as a student, you'll be able to appropriately conduct yourself online, but also these same rules definitely apply to adults. With students, you can have issues where you can have bullying or you can do emotional damage. But with adults, if you cannot properly conduct yourself online, it could be even worse. You could lose your job because you sent something inappropriate. You could have a bad record of things you posted online. You see that kind of stuff in the news all the time. Um, and even if you're posting things that aren't true about people, you could be sued for libel or slander.